Hey, kia ora. Helen Brahms here, coming to you live from Surprise in Arizona. Hope you're having a super fantastic, sparkling day. Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast number 1686. Woo-wee. We're talking cruise versus land vacations. Oh my gosh. This question I get asked a lot. What's the difference between a land vacation and a cruise vacation? Which one's better? As far as which one is better, it is completely up to the individual. It is, how do you like to travel? Do you prefer cruises? Do you prefer land? Do you prefer a mixture of both? It really comes down to what sort of vacation you're looking for, and what sort of vacation you're looking for, and what it is you want to see and do, and things like that. So it is a completely individual. Is one better than the other? Yes, no, maybe. It depends. It all comes down to your preferences. And a travel professional is not going to force you onto a cruise ship if you get seasick and you're sort of like, no, I don't want to do a cruise. I get really bad seasickness, or motion sickness as it's now called. But you want to see there's 27 countries in 5 days type of thing. That's a really good one for a land vacation. Trust me, there are some land tours out there that I'm just sort of like 27 countries. They do like 12 countries in 7 days or something like that. It's usually in Europe where they do that. But anyway, so let's talk about the pros of cruise vacations and the pros of land vacations. We're keeping it very positive and upbeat, and you'll get to hear some stories along the way about which ones I prefer. I will tell you right now, I don't care. I really don't care. If I'm on a cruise ship, awesome. If I'm on a land vacation, awesome. I really don't care. As long as I'm having fun and I'm getting to see and do the things I want to see and do. That's basically what it boils down to. But there are those out there who are very very fixed that they're doing a cruise vacation every single time. And then you've got the other side that are very much land vacation all the way. I'm right there in the middle. I love both for different reasons. So let's have a look at cruise vacations first. Well, you've got all-inclusive deals. And you're probably going to, when I say all-inclusive deals, you're going to say, well, hang on, you got all the inclusive resorts. Yes, you do. But you've got all-inclusive deals on a cruise ship where they offer packages that include your lodging, your meals, your entertainments. They make budgeting easier. You unpack once, and your hotel, the cruise ship, moves you from one location to the other. And back when we first bought our Cruise Planners franchise back in August of 2008, now our official start date was not until April the 1st, because they started from after you go to franchise training. The first of the following month is your official start date. So we actually had our franchise for September, October, November, December, January, February, March, for 7 months before we were official. So our first full year was 19 months. I know, sounds crazy, but that's how it is. So I'm actually coming up on our 15th anniversary with Cruise Planners, which is awesome. I love it. And I'm starting to get back into the swing of things. I'm starting to do some more training and stuff so I can get back into, because there's a lot of stuff that's changed over the last 2 or 3 years. But yeah, so one thing that Brad and I, when we first started our Cruise Planners franchise back in 2008, we had never been on a cruise ship before. We had never sailed on one. Neither of us had. And even though Brad's parents were in the travel industry, he had never been on a cruise. He had done lots of land travel and flying to different countries and things like that, but he had never been on a cruise. We did not take our first cruise until September of the following year. So we had been in the business for 13 months before we stepped foot on a cruise ship for a cruise. And our very first cruise was to Alaska, Inside Passage. And we went out of Seattle, and it was over Labor Day weekend in September. And we were on Norwegian Star, and we were in cabin 9012, because it was up towards the front, and it was a balcony cabin. And there was 80 travel professionals on board the ship. It was part of a group thing that Norwegian put on for travel professionals who had completed the training. Now, different cruise lines will do different training for travel professionals, and some of them will give you a free cruise at the end of it. Some of them will do something different, give you different rates, that sort of stuff. There's all sorts of things that they will do for to acknowledge the travel professionals who have been through their training courses. And this one for Norwegian, it was the PhD at Sea is what it was called. So they actually kind of had it like a college program where you went through your degree, you went through your master's, and then the PhD, and there was a lot of training involved. but the last thing was the PhD at Sea, where you actually got to go and experience a Norwegian cruise, and they took a group of people on with them, and you had fun. Now, somewhere out on YouTube, there is actually video of some of us who volunteered to do just a little snippet. I think it was like about a minute, maybe a minute and a half, on what we'd like to promote Norwegian Cruise Line. And it's on my first cruise. I was like, I have no idea what I'm going to say. But somewhere in this little thing, there's this little snippet of me talking about being on Norwegian Cruise Line and sailing in Alaska. I'll have to go find that, because it was actually a lot of fun. And then some of the people we got to meet on the cruise ship, they did some other ones. We had a couple of people that came down the water slides, and they was filmed all over the ship. They used all sorts of different areas. But anyway, so the thing that Brad liked about it was, and this is how he summed it up. He said, cruising gives you a sample. He said, it's a really cool vacation. And like this says, your food's taken care of, your entertainment's taken care of, you got a room, you got a bed to sleep in, and you unpack once, and the ship moves to different ports, which means that you can go in and try different ports, and in the Caribbean, different countries, because they'll sail to different islands, and you can go and experience those for while you're there in port. And you might decide, I really like this place. I'm going to come back here for a land vacation. So he called it, so in his eyes, he saw cruising as a way to test different countries and cultures and things, to see what he wanted to go back and explore more, like go and do a land vacation there to then explore more. So he was calling the cruise line the sampling. That's how he do it, the sampling. That's what he put it down as. And you do get a variety of cruises, a variety of different countries and ports and places that you get to see and do, because you basically wake up in a new port almost on a daily basis. Sometimes you've got some sea days in there. Like if you're leaving out of California from San Francisco or Los Angeles or San Diego and going to Hawaii, you've got about 5 days at sea before you get to Hawaii. And then they do the cruise around the islands. And then you got 5 days coming back again. And so, you've got that time there where it's sort of like, well, what else is there to do? Well, thankfully, on board the cruise ship, they have a cruise director who is awesome. I have not come across a cruise director who I thought was crap. All the cruise directors I have met on all the cruises I have been on have been amazing. There is not one that'll turn around and says, well, you're crap at this job. You need to find something else. Never have I come across a cruise director or anybody on the entertainment staff that had that attitude. They were all like, what can we do to entertain the passengers on board the ship? So you've got entertainment and activities, from Broadway style shows to live music to cooking classes to kids clubs. And I have to tell you, we went on, you're going to get a lot of stories tonight. So when I went on the Disney cruise, Brad couldn't come with me because he hadn't graduated the Disney School of Knowledge. I actually have my Mickey Mouse ears that says that I'm a graduate of the College of Knowledge, of the Disney College of Knowledge. And so a friend of mine had also completed hers, and she was going on the same cruise that we were going on. There was 41 of us, where they took and it was a new program they were trying out. And we went and stayed at the Disneyland Hotel in Los Angeles, there down by Disneyland. And then the next day they took us out and we boarded the ship beforehand, like we do with a ship tour. So there are ship tours that we can go and do while the ship is in port, between disembarkation and embarkation. So getting off the ship and getting on the ship. And so you get to go tour the ship. Now, this was the first time, and it is the only time that this has happened in the last 15 years, where I have boarded a cruise ship and got the whole ship tour thing done and not had to get off the ship. So we were on Disney Wonder. We're on Disney Wonder. I tell you, that was, to this day, it is still the most magical cruise. I mean, I've taken some amazing cruises, but this one, as far as experience goes, the level that just what Disney does, because you have to remember, Disney, first and foremost, is an entertainment company. It's not a cruise line. It's an entertainment company. So everything they do on board the ship is to entertain everybody from every age group on board the ship. Now, we got to go behind the scenes and into all the kids' areas where the kids are taken care of. We went into one, and they've got this whole rack of costumes up there where the kids can get dressed up, and they got a little stage there so they can put on their own plays. The Disney characters come in and interact with the kids while they're doing this. They'll sit at tables with the kids and do coloring with them and other activity, craft activities and things. And that's for that was for the little ones from like 5 to, hang on, I don't remember how the ages go. I think it was 3 to 7, I think. Oh, it's been a while since I've looked at Disney. But these were for the younger kids. Then the older kids, you go through this hallway and it went into this other room, which was basically a laboratory set up. And they got to do all sorts of experience, like creating volcanoes and making racing cars and all this hands-on activity stuff they got to do. And we're like, can we stay in here? And I said, we'll even get on our knees and walk around on our knees so we look the right height. And they're like, no. The kids have so much fun in the Disney clubs. And even on the first night on the cruise, during the first show, the cruise director, was it the cruise? Yeah, the cruise director gets up and he apologizes to parents right at the beginning of the cruise and says, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to apologize up front because when it comes to disembarking the ship in 7 days, you're going to have to drag your kids off the ship kicking and screaming. He said, and I apologize that happens, but the kids have so much fun, they don't want to leave. But to us, he said, to myself and my crew that that are part of the kids entertainment program and stuff, that is the biggest compliment we can get. And so fast forward to the day we're getting on the ship, and Melissa and I are standing there in line waiting to disembark. And we're waiting to get breakfast. That's what we're waiting to do. And behind us is this kid going, and he's like crying and all this. And he's probably about 7. And he's just like sobbing. And his mother goes, what's the matter? He goes, I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave. Can we stay on the ship? I don't want to get off. And Melissa and I just looked at each other and started laughing. And we looked around and all these kids had tears coming down their faces and they did not want to leave the ship. And I thought, man, the kids' entertainment have done it again. They've kicked it out of the ballpark to get kids, sobbing and parents having to drag their kids off the ship. So just be warned, if you go on a Disney cruise, you will get warned on the first night that will happen on disembarkation. So the kids clubs are fantastic. And then I've been into other places. I went into one where they had this teens club, where they had the teens from 13 through 17. And they had all these bean bags around and they had all these different video games the kids could play. And they were actually up this was on the Disney ship as well, on Disney Wonder. And it was actually up inside one of the funnels. So if you look at the Disney Wonder, there's those funnels there. One of those is actually hollowed out and is the teens club. And they would have boys versus girl competitions. They would have the kids versus the staff competitions. And they would have all these different social interaction things with them. Like they'd have their own parties, their own dances. They'd have a movie night and all this sort of stuff that kept the kids engaged through the whole thing. It was absolutely amazing. So yes, you will get, and I have seen some brilliant shows. I was on Oasis of the Seas. And we went down to the Aqua Theater, which is at the back of the ship on Broadway. And they have, on the boardwalk. And on the Oasis class ships, they have different neighborhoods. And this was Boardwalk, it had a hand-carved carousel on there, which was amazing to ride. I hadn't been on a carousel in years. And they had the hot dog stand, and they had, I think that one had the salsa place where you learn salsa dancing. I'm trying to remember. But you go down to the Aqua Theater. The Aqua Theater has this pool there at the back, and they can very quickly raise and lower the floor so they can be on dry stage for the whole pool area, and then they've got a stage area behind the pool area, or they can put it down just a little bit so that people are just getting their feet wet, or they can put it all the way down so they have the high divers diving in. And they did this whole thing that involved trampolines, it involved the diving boards, it involved water, it involved fountains coming out of the water. I think the Bellagio in Vegas with the fountains doing to music and all that. This production included all of that and had a great storyline that went through. It was fantastic. Then we were inside in the theater one night, and they did this amazing production that when you looked at it, there's a tree that was sitting in the middle of the stage. And if you looked really closely, you could, is that a person? And this whole tree was made of people. And eventually they just peeled away, and they did this whole thing of above the water and below the water. And they didn't have any props on the stage. The people were the props as well. It was phenomenal. I mean, I have seen some amazing stuff on productions in theaters on land, but the ones on the cruise lines, it was like, man, those were awesome. And then you have all the different the activities they'll do in the evenings where they want audience participation. They bring people up on stage. There's just so much entertainment going on there. And then during the day, you'll have like bingo going on. Some of them will have sports courts. You've got the spa. You've got some of them now have racing cars on there. They've got mini golf. Some of them will have pickleball. If you're on Royal Caribbean, they have the Flow Riders, which simulates surfing, which is, if you want great entertainment, go watch the Flow Riders. They are absolutely hilarious. Yes, you're laughing at people falling off, but it's the way the people fall off, then they get up and they're laughing like crazy, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that type of thing. But the cruise lines have all these different things going on. They've got live music going on in some of the bars that you can just go and sit and relax in. Some of them have quiet room areas like libraries and stuff where you just go sit and read, and they'll have board games in there that you can take out and go and sit somewhere and play them. There's a lot of stuff going on board the ship, or you can go sit by the pool, and they usually have an adults only area where kids under the age of I think 16 and above, they're allowed in the adults area. It might be 18 and above. On some ships, on some ships it's 18 and above, on some it's 16 and above. But there's these sanctuary areas where it's adults only, and it's their own private pool area for adults only. And some of those places can be nice and quiet, and they've got the hot tubs there. They've got swimming pools there. There's so much going on board a ship that, there's a lot of stuff that you can go find. So that's activities and entertainment. Easy planning, especially, and if you're looking to relax and not stress about details, it is a fantastic way to meet new people. I was in Vancouver. This is the first cruise I did after Brad had passed. It was he passed in September, and I was on the cruise in May. And that night, my very first night there, I had the anytime dining thing where I could go to the dining room when it was open and say, I want to be seated. Yes, I want to share a table. And I got put at a table for 8 people, and there were 5 of us at the table. And there was a couple, there were 2 girls who were from San Francisco, been friends since they were 5 years old. And we got to hear all about their lives and everything else. And one of them was, what was it, a social worker, and I think one of them was a cop. Can't quite remember. But the other couple were from New Zealand. So here's me in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, on a cruise ship with a couple from New Zealand. So the odds of running into a couple from New Zealand on a cruise ship, not bad. But then I asked them where they were from, and they said they were from Mount Eden. And this little voice that sits in the back of my head here, said, ask them if they've always lived in Mount Eden. So I said, have you always lived in Mount Eden? And the guy's name was Rex. Now, I only know of 2 Rexes. One is my uncle, and the other one was Rex Harrison, the actor, who was in My Fair Lady and Dr. Dolittle, the movies on TV. Those are the only 2 Rexes, and his name was Rex. And I'm like, well, that's not a very common name. And so I said, oh, have you always lived in Mount Eden? He looks at me and he goes, no, I haven't. He says, I grew up in a little town in Taranaki called Waitara. And I went, really? He goes, yeah. I says, Waitara. And he goes, yeah. I said, that's the one place in New Zealand I spent the longest time in my entire life of living anywhere when I was living in New Zealand. I lived there for 6 years. I said I was there through most of my intermediate school, which is in the States here, middle school, all through my high school. And he's like, really? I says, yeah. And he says, when did you move there? I says, in 78. And I said, 78 to 84 is when I was there. And he had left there in 73, but his parents owned the menswear store that was down on the main street on the corner to the one that went directly to the freezing works. And so I said, I know exactly where that store is. It was the only store in town that we could buy the uniforms for the middle school and the high school, because we wore uniforms to school. At public school, we wore uniforms. And it was the only place in town that you could buy them. And so I said, I know exactly where that is. And so we started talking, and I said, my dad was there. He was the local traffic cop. And I said he was great friends with Albert Sophie, who was the local policeman in town, 6,500 people. And he says, oh, Albert and I went to school together. And I said, well, I actually tutored his daughter, who became Miss New Zealand Universe. So she was the contestant from New Zealand that went to the Miss Universe competition one year. And I said, I actually tutored her in accounting when I was in high school. He's like, really? I said, yeah. And so he knew the daughter, and he knew all their children and stuff. But we knew a lot of the same people, and we were able to catch up on news. And the funny thing is that everything he was telling my mum had told me. And my parents moved from Waitara 2 years after I did. So they lived there for 8 years. But my mum still kept up with what all the local gossip was. And so he knew all the local gossip that I did. And So it was actually quite entertaining. So, this little town in New Zealand's got 5 million people in it, and this little town is 6,500 people, and we both lived in that same area, and that's where he had grown up. So you never know who you're going to meet on a cruise ship, but you can meet all sorts of people on cruise ships. And if you do, and being a single on a cruise ship, I always choose to sit at other tables, choose the anytime dining rather than being sat at a fixed table, because they have the traditional dining on the cruise ships, except Norwegian. Norwegians dine anytime, all the time. But on the other cruise ships, they have the dining rooms, which are set dining times. Like you have early dining and late dining, and then you have the anytime dining. And I knew that if I went to the set ones, I would probably get sat at me being single, I'd be plopped in at we've got 9 people at this table, let's put her there, that makes 10. And those other 9 could all be a family. So I was like, nope, I want to meet as many people as possible on this cruise ship. So that's what I did. But I got to meet a lot of different people. I think I ended up knowing more crew on the cruise ship than I did passengers on that trip, because I was carrying around my little friend here, Casey Kiwi. He was my little breaker. He would sit here under my arm, and we'd go walking off around the ship, and wherever I went, he went with me. And if we're sitting at the table, he would sit by my place at the table there. So it was all good. Cruise lines are family friendly. Most of the cruise lines, once you get into the luxury ones, they still are family friendly to a point, but they may, and they may only have kids programs on board the ship at certain times of the year when the kids are out of school. So make sure that when you're looking at, if you're looking at doing one of the luxury cruise lines, talk with your travel professional or one of the specialty cruise lines, because there are specialty cruise lines out there. Talk with them to see if they do have kids programs on board, and from what ages do they have the kids programs. But if you're on the family friendly ships, they have great kids programs, and you can drop the kids off there and go off and do whatever you want and come back and pick the kids up. On the Disney ship, they would, you could go and have your family, and they promised to have the kids from soup to nuts, which is full meal, in 40 minutes, I think it was 30 or 40 minutes. Then when the kids were finished eating, you then took them up to the entry of the restaurant that you were dining in that night, because on Disney Cruise, you switch restaurants every night. And I'll tell you about that in a minute. And you hand the kids off to the kids program people who are there to collect the kids, take them up to the kids area, and then you get to pick them up like around 10, 11 o'clock at night. So you've got time to have a relaxing evening dining, then go see a show, then go pick your kids up and get them all off to bed. So that's really fun. Educational opportunities. A lot of the times when you're doing things like river cruises, if you're doing any cruises to specific areas like Antarctica or the Arctic, above the Arctic Circle and things, especially if it's a specialty cruise, they will actually bring on like naturalists or people about culture that will give you lectures on the culture that you're going to experience when you go there, what the history is, the culture. It could be that you're on one of the luxury cruise lines, and it's a special photography cruise that they're doing. So they bring in these photographers. Usually they're like National Geographic graded photographers that come in, and they will show you how to get amazing pictures with your phone, as well as with the Whoopie-Doo cameras with all the bells and whistles. So you get those sorts of things as well. On some cruise lines, they will have like art classes. You will have like bridge class. Oh, it's not really. Yeah, you could learn to play bridge on a cruise ship. So there's already different things that you can do on board the ship that's educational, and you can learn new things on there. And they have different workshops on different things as well. Comprehensive safety and medical facilities. Yeah, they are staffed. They have and I would have to say they have a really. We were on Freedom of the Sea, Royal Caribbean's Freedom of the Seas, when Brad got a bacterial infection in his gut. It wasn't norovirus. It was not norovirus. And so we got to experience the medical facilities on board the ship, and they were awesome. He did have to isolate, and we were in an inside cabin, and I'm never sailing in an inside cabin again after that week. But when we got off the ship, we were given pre-departure, like we were priority departure. And we got into the vehicle that was taking us to the airport. We weren't flying, we were going there to pick up the rental car. We picked up the rental car, and I have friends in town a friend in town who was a paramedic. So I called him and said, hey, we have to take Brad to a hospital. Where do we go? And so he told us which hospital to go to. So we drove over there and spent a couple of hours at the hospital. And then they said they were going to check him in because there was more testing that they had to do that they weren't able to do on board the ship. And so they said they were going to admit him. So that's when I went and checked into our hotel where we were going to be staying and got the laundry done. And we're actually at a Merit Vacation Club, one of the timeshares. And so I got all the laundry done and everything else till Brad called me to let me know what room he was in. And then I went back to the hospital to visit him and had to put on a gown, had to put on a mask, and which was horrifying, had to put on gloves. And they had one of those masks that went here and then had like the visor piece that came up. And so I put it on very quickly. He took a picture and then got that mask off very quickly. I said to my sisters, this mask ain't staying on. And I said, I have to put that stuff on. And they're like, yeah. I says, you do realize I just came off a cruise ship being in the same room with him for the last 7 days, being with him 24/7 in the last 7 days. And she's like, oh. I said, yeah, so why? She says, it was to stop me spreading it around the hospital. I'm like, okay, I get that. Sometimes I just forget things. So we were very thankful that they had a great medical staff on board. Multiple destinations, no logistical worries. The cruise line handles all the transportation logistics from port taxes to finding docking spots. You get to focus on enjoying your vacation without stress or arrangements. There are times that you will have to get like visas beforehand based on what countries you're going to be visiting. But most of the time, everything else is taken care of. Eco-friendly options. Some cruise lines are making, in fact, all cruise lines are now making, well, all the ones that I deal with anyway, are making efforts to be more eco-friendly with advanced water waste treatment, energy efficiency, and reducing single-use plastics. So they're getting better at this, and they've got different deadlines, and the cruise industry has got these different deadlines that these ships have to meet before certain specific dates and things like that as well. And the ones that are being built have got specific requirements as far as eco-friendly options go as well. And then you have special interest cruises. They can be the entire ship, or it can be a group that you're taking on board. But it could be, a food and wine cruise. It could be fitness cruise. It could be a history cruise. When we were on Norwegian Star, they had a quilting group on board, and they had one of the conference rooms was set up with all these tables and sewing machines. And then they had other tables pushed together to be the cutting tables. And then they had the sewing machine. Then they had all the sewing machines around the outside of the room. They had they had chairs so you could sit there and do the hand stitching and things like that. And I've seen photography class on board. I've done ones with retreats where they bring in speakers and doing training and things like that, coaching. There's been a Harley group on board a ship. What else has been? Basically, if you can think about it, they've been some of them they will actually book out the entire ship. Because it's so specialized, and other ones, it's just groups that go on that have similar interests. So that's all the stuff with cruise vacations. You've got all-inclusive deals, variety of destinations, entertainment and activities, easy planning, family-friendly, educational opportunities, comprehensive safety and medical facilities, multiple destinations, no logistical worries, eco-friendly options, and special interest cruises. There's 10 reasons for a cruise. Now we're going to quickly look at. She's laying on the floor behind me with her head on the other side of the curtain. Like, we need to go. Yes, we do. So now we're going to go over land vacations. You've got flexibility where you can go at your own pace. You can change your itinerary on a whim, and you can really deep dive into a culture. So you can basically plant yourself in one area, which is the second one, which is cultural immersion. You can stay in one place longer. If you want to do different areas and things, you can, you might want to spend 4 days here, 5 days here, 3 days over here. So you can actually move around at your leisure and experience the culture. You might just turn around and say, we're going to go to this place. We're going to plant ourselves here for a week, and we're going to do these little day trips to these little towns and stuff that are nearby. Wide range of accommodations. You've got luxury resorts, luxury all-inclusive resorts, all the way down to bed and breakfasts and Airbnbs and everything in between, regular hotels, regular motels, there's all sorts of accommodation there. And if you want to, there's even couch surfing. Yeah, I met somebody one time who was at a conference. I was at a conference, and I said, where are you staying? He goes, oh, tonight I'm staying at this place. I'm like, what do you mean tonight? He says, oh, I'm couch surfing. I'm like, what the heck is that? He says, oh, you can go on this website here, and and people will have couches that they will rent out for a night. And it's like, $20 or something like that to have a couch. And he said he got to one place, and he was going to be at this one for 2 nights, and they put him on the couch in the basement, which was a fold-out bed. And they says, okay, Enjoy the house. We'll be back in a couple of days. And they left him in this house. He said it was like a 2-story house with a full basement and everything completed. He had the whole basement area to himself, which was like a self-contained apartment. And he had full use of upstairs where they had a theater. And he said it was this big house and they basically left him alone in there for 2 nights. That's awesome. So yeah, wide range of accommodations. You can even get cabins in the middle of nowhere that have no facilities. If you really want to go off grid, you can do that as well. Adventure and exploration, perfect for those who love to explore off the beaten path. As we know, you're a traveler, not a tourist. There's different outdoor adventures you can do. My niece and her husband for their honeymoon went up and stayed in near Fairbanks at this place that had the dome ceiling so they could watch the Northern Lights. And they posted these amazing photos, but it was all part of this tour thing that they were on as well. And they had a blast up there. They went on the snowmobiles and did a whole bunch of, they went mushing and of course got to see the Northern Lights. So they were absolutely stoked. So that's one thing off their bucket list. So there's, different things like that, getting off the beaten path, going to places where they're, how far off the beaten path do you want to go? Do you want to go to a place that has absolutely no facilities? It's just a cabin in the middle of nowhere. And you got to find, dig your own loo. I've done that many times. For some reason, our family, when we were boondocking with our caravan, I was the latrine digger. Not sure how that happened. So you can, and you're also going deeper into a country as well, deeper into an island where you get to see things that you wouldn't get to see if you were on the cruise ship because of the travel time and distance. Which is why when people go down to New Zealand and they want to do a cruise, they finish their cruise in Auckland, they get off, we put them onto a self-drive tour for the rest of New Zealand that they didn't get to see on the cruise ship, because at one port there are so many options that we base in one area that's more central than where the cruise ship comes in, and they just do all of these little day travels to go and see all the things that they didn't get to see when they were on the cruise ship that they wanted to do. They go, you can do culinary adventures. You can embrace the local dining scene, from street food to gourmet restaurants and everything in between. There's some places where they are known for their food, or they're up and coming and known for their food, where you can actually go to the visitor center and you can pick up a map and it's got the restaurants mapped out and all that, or a list of restaurants you can go to, and they may even have discount coupons and stuff. You go and personalize your experience so you can tailor it to your vacation, exactly what you want to see. I remember there was one couple, I spent 2 hours and we literally planned out their itinerary minute by minute, and it was put into their Google Calendar as, okay, we're going to be driving from this time to this time. When we get there, we've got this, and everything was put into there, which was kind of cool because they had it all mapped out and everything else. And one tour company said to me, this is, they're missing all the good bits. I says, nope. I says, they're seeing exactly what they want to see. And I says, I know they're not going to some of the well-known spots in New Zealand, but that's what they want to do. They want to get off the beaten path, and this is what they want to experience. So yeah, you can. And if you wanted to, if you got a free day and you think, let's just hop in the car, you've got a rental, let's hop in the car and go here, or let's hop in the bus and go here, or let's hop in, you can do last minute bookings and things. You can walk past a thing. Oh, it's a cooking school. Oh, they've got private lessons. Let's go in and check them out and see if we can have a lesson. Some of those types of experiences. So you've got those that you can do too. And it can be less crowded depending on your destination that you're going to and the timing. So remember, when kids are out of school, that's the busiest time and the most expensive time to go. Not just here in the US. If you're going down to New Zealand and Australia, their kids are out of school for summer vacation from like the week before Christmas all the way through to the end of January. So busy time down there, most expensive time to travel down there. But if you go down at other times of the year, like April through November, the kids are in school. Most of the time they're in school. They've got different breaks throughout. But you can dodge them and you can get to see New Zealand in a different light, because, if you like skiing and stuff, there's a whole bunch of skiing stuff you can do down in New Zealand. You got world-class skiing down there. But there's a lot of things, like if you're going on any of the hikes and stuff, there's, the hikes are available for certain times of the, maybe available for certain times there, depending on the region that it's in. So you might be able to go less crowded at a more relaxed pace, cheaper vacation, but you get the experience because you get off the beaten path with the locals, and you get to spend more time with the locals. You can support local economies by staying, dining, and shopping in local establishments. Directly benefits the community. In New Zealand, you will find a lot of places that are mom and pop hotels, restaurants, not a lot of chains, down, chain restaurants and stuff down there. So you get to experience what's local. Hang on. Kathy's got here, even though I'm in Canada, you can still be my cruise travel consultant, book my cruises, right? Okay, so here's the thing. Based on the cruise line, we can book overseas if it's going into a group. We can book international, which Canada is considered international. But if you have a US credit card with a US address, we can book you with no problem at all. Can we book riding lessons on a Tasmanian devil? No. They're like about this big. They're not that big. Casey Kiwi might want to go on. Yeah, but no, Casey Kiwi would end up shredded. Let's see. And you get unique accommodations. You can stay in castles. You can stay at homestays. You can do farm stays where you actually get to go. In New Zealand, they do farm stays where you get to go and stay on a farm, and you actually get to work the farm like a sheep station. So you get to learn about, moving sheep and, what goes into a sheep station in New Zealand. There's different things that you can do, and you actually get hands-on experience on a farm stay, which is kind of cool. You can stay in tree houses. There's places that have tree houses, eco lodges. There's different unique places. My niece and her husband, when they went up to Fairbanks, and they're staying in those domed, their cabin had a dome ceiling so they could lay in bed and look at the northern lights. So, unique accommodations. And in seasonal and thematic flexibility, land vacations offer flexibility to chase the best weather. Absolutely. Attend seasonal festivals or events. Yep. And plan trips around specific themes or interests that may not be catered to on a cruise. So, no, you can't stay in the Shire. Yeah, she just asked if you could stay in the Shire. And I went to Hobbiton, and no. If you ever get to New Zealand and you want to see a working movie set, Hobbiton is brilliant. Even if you haven't watched the movies, just to see the behind the scenes stuff on how they do things. Like we're standing up on one of the higher levels there, and some of the Hobbit houses were quarter size, some were half size, some were full size, depending on what shot they needed and when they needed it. And then they said, and then we're standing up the top there. And I'm going to get this right. East was over there, west was over there, but in the movie, it's the other way around. So they made west look like east and east look like west. And I'm like, so we learned the secret of that. There's also a very large tree there that is fake. And we got the story about that they had put it all up. They had hand-painted individual leaves for this thing. They had it all up and running. And Peter Jackson came along. Apparently, according to the guide that we had, Peter Jackson came along and says, nope, wrong shade of green. Take them all down and repaint them. So there's a fake tree, and it's a big tree. It is a big tree. When you see this tree and you hear the story behind it, it's like, oh my gosh. So the Hobbit houses are just shells. They're just the front. The insides were all movie sets. So when you're looking at the outside of the house, and I actually have a photo somewhere on my Facebook page of me actually standing in a Hobbit house doorway with Casey Kiwi, and the doors open a little further than what I should have done because you can see the brick wall behind. So it's only like about 2 feet wide when you're behind that door. And most of them are just the fronts. But yeah, you can go down to the Green Dragon and get really, really good food. They actually had a side room set up where our group went in. There was 10 of us, and our group went in there, and we had a really good meal in there. So it was a great, I tell you, Hobbiton was a fantastic experience. And if you hadn't seen the movies, it didn't matter, because the behind the scenes stuff on how they do things in movies was fascinating. They even had, they have these wooden fences up, and they've got moss growing on one side of the fence. But if you look at it, you go, hang on, that's the full sun side that this moss is growing on. So they've got moss growing on the wrong side of the wood, because moss usually grows on the shade side, not the sunny side. So they tell you how they get it to do that. And all their gardens and orchards and everything are all attended to every day, and that's where they get their produce to use in the restaurant that's there in the Green Dragon. Excuse me. It's just such a fantastic place to go. And then if you're in Wellington and you go to Weta Caves, they actually have a tour that you can do, which is called Windows. They've got a tour that you can do behind the scenes. And when we went to do that, they're talking about these different movies and things, and you got to see how they progressed through different weapons and stuff, and got to see how they did the forms for creating trees, and because we saw one being carved out, and they had all this behind the scenes stuff that you got to see. And we got out of there, and at one point my mum says to me, she says, I've never seen any of the movies. I says, it doesn't matter. She says, I don't know what they're talking about with the movies. I says, just enjoy how they do the special effects. She's like, oh, okay. So yeah, I said, what was that? I said, how did you find that afterwards? She says, that was really good. She says, I've never seen any of his movies though, but that was really good information. And we got to see, because the I can't think of his name. The guy who created all the swords that were used in Lord of the Rings, had the title of, I want to say Master. It's definitely Master. Master Swordsman, I think it was. And that master title was actually given to him by Queen Elizabeth II, and which meant that he was the person who would make all of the swords and knives and everything that for the Queen. He was the royal swordsman, which was really cool. And they said sometimes you get to see him in there working, but that particular day he wasn't there. But we got to hear about how he was this master swordsman, which meant that he was the royal swordsman, the one that would make the ceremonial swords and all of that for the royals. So that was kind of cool to see that. And that was just in this little building in New Zealand. But I understand that they've expanded it a little more now. But it was really cool to go through that as well. And my mum was like, I've never seen any of his movies. It doesn't matter. She's like, okay. But yeah, so those are some of the pros for doing land vacations: is flexibility, cultural immersion, wide range of accommodations, adventure and exploration, culinary adventure, personalized experience, less crowded, support local economies, unique accommodations, and season and thematic flexibility. So, and no, you don't get any precious rings given out on the tours. You can buy them in the gift store though. They have a gift store, because you meet over at the gift store and then they put you on a bus and take you. And at Hobbiton, it is a guided tour. So you go to the visitor center /shop. So it's a visitor center as well as a shop as well. And then they put you into a van and they take you over to Hobbiton itself. And then you get out and you've got this guided walk through there. And it is really fascinating. Every tour guide has their own favorite stories that they like to tell. So it doesn't matter how many times you go there, you're going to learn something new every time, because you'll learn the basics, but then every tour guide has their own favorite story that they like to tell. So those are some of the pros for doing cruise vacations, for doing land vacations. Which do you prefer? Like I said, I'm down the middle. I don't care if it's land or if it's if I'm on a riverboat or a cruise or an ocean cruise. I have to tell you, river cruises are awesome. I don't care if I'm on water or if I'm on land. I enjoy vacations no matter where they are. And so I'm one of those down the middle people. But are you ones who are very much cruise and may do the occasional land, or absolutely no land? Or are you on the other side of the scale where you will do only land vacations and never even step foot on a cruise ship? Well, maybe once. So which one of you? Let us know in the comments below. And that's it from us for tonight. Go out, have a super fantastic sparkling evening. I'm off to walk the dog, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Pacific. Hey, konera.